This is GEFerris. I have put together a group of pictures of boats in the Arctic. Here is a Nantucket sleigh ride for you. This footage I obtained from the Whaling Museum in Massachusetts. Very difficult conditions. This boat is unballasted. It can be sailed. It does have a centerboard trunk. You can see how it has a lovely rounded bilge. It's very seaworthy. It's being steered from the stern by a long sweep oar. The ability of this boat is a factor due to its design. The boat has a keel which it's not so pronounced that it can't be easily turned around. See what happens when a boat gets flipped over finally by a whale. It has lovely rounded bilges. They'll have this very boat in their collection. And in this moment the whale turns on the boat, it flips it, and the bottom of the boat. Here is one of their whale boats on display in New Bedford, and this is to show you from the stern looking forward the roundness of the bilges. It is a simple planked boat, easily repaired, very lightweight. It's lightweight so it can be deployed very quickly, and here you have the shape of it. You can see how the bottom integrates with the upper portions of the boat. Here is the actual boat that was in the film that we were watching. And this is the details of the bottom of the boat for you. It has a lovely soft shape, but where the distribution of the curves run makes for the seaworthiness of this boat. It's the shape of this boat that makes it so seaworthy. It was not designed to rely on ballast to give it seaworthiness. It was designed to also be repaired very easily with a simple cedar planking. You can see the keel, how much it projects. Now we are at Mystic Seaport looking at John Boxtow's umiaq, which comes from the Diamede Islands in Alaska. Its shape is directly derived from the whaleboat. The Eskimos or Aleutian Inuit discovered that by rounding up the bilges of their older design of umiaq but retaining the same structure, they could motor along much better. So this was an adaptation of a traditional structure for a non-traditional means of propulsion. In other words, for motoring versus paddling, sailing, or rowing. Here is the bow of the boat, and it is meant to be pulled up, which it is every evening after a day on the water. It's pulled up on the shore or on the ice so that the skins have a chance to dry out to a certain degree, because these boats cannot tolerate being in water for more than 12 hours at a time. This boat, the skin is split walrus hide. It is lashed to the inner stringer. That's the only place it is lashed to. It has been has one seam down the middle of it. Each rib is split in half so that each side of the boat functions independently. The entire boat is designed to be a shock absorber. This allows it to be used in ice conditions, which is common in the Arctic. It can strike a hard object and the whole boat will absorb it very easily, and it's very puncture resistant because of its structure. When you go to pick up the bow or the stern of this boat, the rest of the boat stays in place because it's such a structure that is so flexible. That is why it's only lashed in one area along the stringer. It is in the stern you can see designed to take an outboard motor, but it's also structured to be lightweight and easy to slide up on ice floes should you get trapped in ice floes. The exterior has been painted with white paint and each area has its own theory. Now you can look at these split ribs more closely. You can see how the flooring is designed for this boat. In the next pictures of the traditional umiaq, here we are in Barrow, where we are going to see one. This is the bearded seal skin, which is being stretched out, and it is used for umiaq covers in Barrow. Here is the traditional umiaq. Also in Greenland, the bearded seal is used, not walrus. This boat is also designed with an overhanging stern, which can take a outboard motor, but it is launched with paddles, and it could also be rowed and sailed. It has double blind stitched seams. They're stitched on the outside and on the inside. To put the skin on the boat, it is first stitched from both sides simultaneously by 6 women. Then it is stretched over the gunnels and cinched up on these stringers on the inside. But note the structure of these ribs and this floor. It's entirely different than what we have just seen in the Diamede kayak. The ribs are attached at single points only, so that they will pivot with where they attach to the stringers. The floor is perfectly flat. This is a traditional umiaq. And there is no paint on the skin. It is coated with seal oil when it's necessary. This is the frame of umiaq. These frames last for many, many years. This particular one could be 50, 60 years old. It's hard to say. But this is to show you the structure of how the stringers are attached to the stem. The stem is one piece of wood and then pieced into the flooring, the chines. These stem pieces are from washed up roots of trees. And the source of the trees is usually the rivers in Siberia. But note how the stringers and ribs are attached. Each area does have its own particular little design differences. But across the Arctic, the universal boat from Siberia across Alaska, across Canada and Greenland is this umiaq. Here we have the detail of the floor for you. Note how the ribs extend and then stop at the floor. They don't go across. So the sides of the boat are independent of each other. The only thing that unifies them is really the skin of the boat. You have the thwarts. They're very simple. Now in Jakobshavn, Greenland, or Ilulissat, here is their traditional umiaq, which is also covered with seal. This has been heavily oiled, that's why its color is a little darker. The skins are stitched together with the same. And here's the interior structure. You can see it's roughly the same, but it's different. The ribs are different and the flooring is different. But it's the same boat. These boats can carry enormous amounts of cargo. Entire families depended greatly on these boats for going from place to place. The only way to travel in Greenland is really over the ice in the winter and over the water in the summer. It's a simple boat of many pieces, which is easily repaired and easily built. You can see its structure. Now we are looking at a kayak from Amaslik, which is the east coast of Greenland. This is a narrow, flat, but multi-chined kayak. You can see the bow. It is meant not just for paddling through rough water, which Amaslik is known for, but also for being able to get it up onto the ice. In Amaslik they put ivory runners on these chines because the area is unpredictable for when the ice will occur. This was paddled by Minea Manessa. These are the deck lines. Now we are in Inlet Baffin Island in Canada, Northwest Territories. This kayak has a clipper bow. It's a very high bow. It has a multi-chined hull. It's a very beamy kayak. The wide flat deck is meant for putting the hunting quarry on. You can easily put a seal on the deck or several seals and paddle through the ice floes. In Baffin, the ice is much heavier and denser than it is in Greenland, and so very often a kayak paddler is paddling through ice floes and you cannot tow easily through ice. The paddle on this boat is markedly different than the Greenland paddle because it is much longer and it has carved in drip rings. The technique in Greenland for handling dripping is to line the edges of the kayak paddle with bone. Here it's the length and the shape of the paddle that affects that. The windage of this paddle is still quite low because of its very narrow blade. The skin is stitched on with the same stitch as is used in umiaqs and its 6 seal hides. This is a kayak in Seward, Alaska, an Aleutian kayak with a very rounded, deep hull and a high-peaked deck. The purpose of the high peak is to shed large rolling waves that the Pacific Ocean is well known for. Different sea conditions cause people to design boats differently. That's what makes kayaks so fascinating. This kayak has a bifurcated bow. The bifurcated bow allows, as in this kayak, which is a baidarka, one to build a high volume and a low volume shape and cover it with hide. This baidarka is a George Dyson design, but originally it is a traditional Aleutian kayak, and it is covered with nylon filter cloth that has been impregnated with hypalon. It's a very stiff structure, but it would be fascinating to see how this boat would function on this boat. The high-peaked decks, and what one does with your hunting quarry is you put it inside the boat. With big seas, you don't want to be towing, and it lessens the wind pressure against the boat, and you don't have to worry about loose bifurcated bow and how the water comes off of this. It also has a squared off small stern, which affects the waterline of the boat in such a way as to make the water run behind it with less disruption. So it acts with a squared off stern as though it were a much longer boat. Here in the Mystic Seaport Museum is a King Island 2-man and a single kayak. They do not have bifurcated bows, but they have high, steep-sided decks. The bows are elevated and have quite a bit of volume in them, so to prevent them from burying so deeply in the seas. It also prevents them from weathercocking. Note this very, very round form. This particular kayak in King Island is oftentimes ballasted with a 25-kilogram rock placed on the floor behind the kayak paddler. It can be rolled, and it can be rolled with a single paddle. This is the deck detail for you. And this is the bow once again of the double. This is the bow of the single. These are covered with seal hide, just as the ones in Barrow and the one in Greenland. This is a modern kayak, canvas covered with, of all things, a clear vinyl bottom. This boat functions very nicely because it does flex slightly in the seas. The whole frame acts as a unit, and I think it's delightful having a perfectly transparent bottom. Here we have Dave McCulloch in Old Lyme building a traditional glued plank frame boat. He is working on taking measurements, checking this plank that he has just put in place. And this is built over a strong back on a form, so you can make many replicates of this same boat. The material is 3 or 4 millimeter brinzial plywood. Now we move on to Betsy Woodward. She is building a geodesic type of boat where she has placed wood over the form. Then she has created the deck here in this picture, and she will next cover this structure with Dacron.
Yes. And then I have these cross pieces that will be going in, one here and then another one here, and I'll build up from that. To support this. Here.
Okay. Yeah.
And all I do there is just, for compression strength there, and I'll have the Kevlar stringers will be going around.